exhausted after that.
Yeah, it's rough when you have to deal with all of that as a race car driver in the sim when you put in so many laps. And we're just hearing some technical difficulties on the cable in our racing network. We are going to get the feed back to you, and we hope that you are joining us on the secondary stream that just about went live, and hopefully we can get everyone back in it. So apologies for the technical difficulties. We're talking about how tough it is to drive a sim racing car as Kip Easley continues to lead this race with 5 laps to go left in stage number 2 from Daytona. There is our secondary pack of cars, starting with 13th place Tony Kimmett, Jason Anderson, CJ Munier, and Craig Parks. A bulk of them, including Parks, had been washed out of the way after being nearly involved in an accident in the tri-oval with some of the other DBR teammates. Thankfully, they all settled it out, and we are continuously green flag racing. What we haven't seen, Francisco, though, is green flag pit stops. Of course, we have a relatively short stage, so not exactly the greatest situation for outright strategy. But when they do come down pit road, it will matter a lot. And here comes Muscarella wanting the track position. With 5 laps to go in this stage, Chris Progar to help in turn 1.
And Ross Harlow to follow. Steven Stempy a little bit further back, so that leaves Lawson Peel and Keep Easily the DVR cars just by themselves on the outside. But you mentioned no green flag pit stop strategies quite yet, Kenneth. That's all going to change in that final stage. Once they go green, it'll be about 60 laps to the checkered flag. That is not enough on 1 tank of gas, so they'll definitely have to do some kind of pit strategy, whether it's under caution or under the green flag. There's the 25 machine of Chris Gibbu going 1 lap down here. They'll negotiate around him relatively easily, as this is now a smaller lead pack consisting of about 12 cars back to James Kunkel. Tony Kimmett, the 13th place car, goes around the 71 now with Richard Modric, who's 1 lap down. So a lot of spreading out through the field, Kenneth. That's that second group. You have a third group led by Daniel Holdcroft and Brad Fulham, about 16 seconds behind the race leader. Then you have to go back to the pair of Casey Knighton and Parker Bland back in 24th and 25th. They are 23 seconds off your race lead. Those are the cars currently on the lead lap.
And 25 cars total. A lot of them will be happy that the Stage 2 caution is coming out shortly because they are all by themselves. They will just have to avoid getting put a lap down. Things are getting a bit sketchy at the front of the field, though. Muscarella had to get away from a push from Chris Progar. Nearly got sent away sideways off turn 4. Big block by Muscarella to the trial on Kip Easley. It works momentarily, but Muscarella has to dive back down and wiggle the race car again. Kip Easley in control back to turn 1, and Muscarella will fight back, though.
That was a lot of checking up on the bottom. Ross Harlow had to lift from sending Progar into Muscarella and causing a wreck there. And that's going to cost them ultimately because there goes the 8 of Easley, the 9 of Peel, the 23 of Hall. They're getting lined up on the top, trying to pull away and get some kind of a gap to settle in and take the lead away.
And there's a look at the entire first pack. Not many of them, and it's tailed by the 42 of James Kunkel, who was at 1 point second place in this race and nearly had a shot at the race lead. Final 2 laps in the second stage. Stempien had the best of the point situation the first time around. Who can get it this time around? Lawson Peel back in second, waiting in the ranks with his teammate right in front. Muscarella is banding back together to get this one at a run on the inside lane. Here comes Muscarella for second place in turn 2.
Trying to fight back and see if he can get a stage win here. But it's easily holding up to the top lane with help from his teammate Lawson Peel. They'll find their way over to the last lap of the stage when they get back to the start-finish line, Kenneth, and the pushes are just getting more and more aggressive.
Kip Easley, though, wants to hang on, and he knows he can trust the teammate behind, but if anybody third on back on the outside makes a move, it could be some dear trouble out of turn 4. Kip Easley will cross the start-finish line. They're crashing to the end of the stage. Chris Progar and several others in the wall and in the grass. Second stage concludes. Kip Easley, the stage winner.
Lawson Peel in second. Zachary Hall will take away the third spot, but a big wreck. Much like we saw in that first stage, Kenneth, an incident coming to the final lap of the stage that'll end the stage under yellow this time around, and it looked like it was just a slow progression the way that wreck happened. It looked like it was Progar and the 16 of Harlow. You see right there just drifting up into each other ever so slightly. Getting Jason Hastings involved, a handful of others. Brandon Banks was sliding through there as well, through the grass. See if we could get some more angles on this.
you know, not that much damage on all of those cars. They're mostly able to escape scot-free, but again, problems for many of them trying to get to that checkered flag in stage number 2. Here's a look on board from the paulscars.com Chevrolet of Brandon Banks on the outside.
There's the contact with the 16 right there. There's nothing Banks can do in that situation. But he does a good job of holding a pretty wheel, and really all of them do for that matter. Nobody really fully went around, just some contact, some sliding through the grass, and everybody pretty much kept it going. About the only thing I see is Banks littering a bunch of grass on the tri-oval.
Well, the lawnmowers will have a pretty tough job ahead of them. The virtual lawnmowers will, as the field comes down pit road, and thankfully for all of those guys involved, it's either minor damage or no damage at all, so they will not have to spend that much time on pit road, apart from Ross Harlow, who seemed probably got the biggest damage out of that. It looks like suspension problems on the right front for the Valhalla Project Chevrolet.
You see some kind of thing with the right front. It's not exactly pointing straight enough. As everybody makes their way into pit lane, the 32 misses his pit stall. He has to back up into it. It's going to cost him some time, but watching out for this race off of pit road, there's Lawson Peel, Kip Easley exiting together, and it looks like Lawson Peel wins the race off pit road.
What a good pit stop by Lawson Peel. Barely gets away from his teammate, Kip Easley. A photo finish to the pit road exit line. And after Kip Easley wins the second stage from Daytona, Lawson Peel will have the best starting spot of the field. Very good stuff for the Columbus, Mississippi native. Let's see if we can get a word with the stage 2 winner of the night, Mr. Kip Easley. You got a copy with us?
Yeah, I do.
All right, Kip. Well, first of all, congratulations on the stage 2 win. You've already led a ton of laps as it goes. What has your night been like in a few simple words?
It's not been too bad. Just trying to avoid chaos here. I've been up front most of the nights, so most of the damage and carnage has been behind me. But so far, it's been pretty smooth and calm.
And you've had some teammates around, some teammates not. We know Lawson Peel probably instrumental in helping you keep your position in this second stage. But what have you learned over the course of this race, whether you're with your teammates or not, and how have you been able to adjust accordingly as the race has progressed?
Well, I definitely couldn't have done it without a numerous amount of my teammates. Tony earlier, and then obviously Lawson here at this last one. I wouldn't even have been around. You got to have help for sure. Bottom's really tough, especially if that top line gets going. You can't really do anything on the bottom. So I would look for the top to be pretty dominant as you know the last few laps here.
Well, now we enter the final stage of the race. You guys have had a pretty simple strategy call for the first half of the event in just pitting at the end of each stage. We've got a 65 lapper, probably a little less than that given this caution break. What do you see happening strategy-wise for yourself and for your teammates as you guys try to plan a way to the victory tonight?
Well, I think definitely this will put everybody to the test here, because I think typically we'll probably have a green flag run here, just judging by how we've done in the past. But I assume we have a green flag pit stop here coming up, and I think that'll really shuffle the field, at least down to the wire, and then we'll see what happens from there.
All right, Kip. Well, you've got some really good points on the way, and with a really good shot at winning tonight's race from the World Center of Racing. Congratulations on stage 2. Best of luck at the restart for stage 3.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
So that is the Drinkin' Bros Racing Kip Easley machine. Has led 22 of the 62 laps completed so far out of 125. Has definitely made a keen name for himself, but he will have his teammate Lawson Peel on the inside. So a potential strategy call for these guys to continue working together. We've seen often at the super speedways in the tri-oval, teammates can get a big run up front and then have their friend tallying right behind or ahead of them in the entry to turn 1. But as they control both lanes, Francisco, Drinkin' Bros Racing is stepping up as of this moment.
Stepping up, and we'll see what they're able to do, Kenneth. And we'll see when we go green here. Start of the final stage. It's going to be a long one, 60 laps or so. And we're going to have pit strategy, so we'll see. Let's see what they decide to do, because I don't think one stop is going to be enough to get them to the checkered flag, because that would be about 30 each, and they couldn't do that. So I believe second, a 2-stop is most likely what's going to be the case if it goes green.
You got to decide when you'll take the 2 stops. That is, if this race continues on the way it is. If we do get the cautions, that will help out the case. But the pit stop at the right moment could be the difference between winning and losing this one under strategy. Green flag raises in the air from the World Center of Racing for the kickoff of stage number 3. And there's exactly what I mentioned. Peel gets the opening jump. Kip easily settles back into second for turn 1.
And then Muscarella is able to slide into 4th spot, leaving most of the outside lane basically non-existent right now. You have to go all the way back to Warren Kyle Keith, who's the first one on the outside. Muscarella's going to jump up there now, and he has help from James Kunkel to try and go back up there and make a move. Brandon Banks, who was just involved in sliding through the grass, he's up there in the top 10.
Had a shot at the stage points there on lap number 60, and is here behind Zachary Hall, the Toyota Camry, to make a push on the inside lane. Big difference in space between Easley's back bumper and the front end of Zachary Hall, so it will lose the momentum for that bottom end train. Allows Muscarella's Lowe's Chevrolet to get back into the mix with James Kunkel and Warren Kyle Keith right behind. One of the highest that we've seen Warren Kyle Keith in position run tonight is done well for the most part at quietly staying up through the field. And here comes WKK, old 4 name, with a chance at the top 5 right now.
On the top 2 were kind of spaced out a little bit on their own, but now Muscarella gets clear. That's going to get him to the outside of Easley. Peel does not choose to block the move, so there goes Muscarella now, challenging for the race lead.
And how about James Kunkel? The performance he's put up all night long has stayed in this contention for as long as we can remember, either through the duels or tonight in this main race. Kunkel, the 35-year-old out of Columbus, Georgia, has done really well for that D Legacy Motor Club team that is sort of scattered across Daytona here tonight. And Muscarella takes the race lead to turn 1, doesn't move down in front of the Chevrolet of Lawson Peel, gets the Mississippi native back underneath for the top spot in turn 2.
Kenneth, am I seeing this right? Is that Timothy Stubblefield in the top 10 again?
I think it is. P7. The Mustang is running right now. And how about what's happened to Stubblefield, involved in 2 crashes, has already won a duel tonight, and here he is, top 6 on the outside 4th car.
Just no quitting in this 94. He documented how he had to stay out of trouble, and it's been anything but for him tonight. And he's found himself up in the top 10, still with a chance to survive and come away with a good result. Still can win this thing, but it's still a long way to go. We're barely just past the halfway point.
That's the positive of a long race like this, is that if you get into trouble early, you can immediately recoup for the mistakes, get your car fixed, and be back out to gain track position by the end. And already past halfway, Stubblefield is putting a magnificent push to the cars in front of him and trying to make an effort here on the outside lane into the top 5, and they're starting to pull away from Lawson Peel. So that outside lane, Francisco, kind of how Kip easily alluded to in our interview after stage 2, going to be the dominant lane of choice for those leading the field.
It is, and we've seen it all night. Most guys will tend to want to go to the bottom to try and make some of the moves. It's just faster, especially on the straightaways. You don't have to check up as much in the corner, so it gives you just this run down the straightaway. But sometimes you just get the push gone wrong, and that's when you stack up and the bottom starts to come back and make a play towards it. So it really comes down to how can someone push, especially the leaders, to try and keep up the kind of pace that they're able to have as lead cars. There's a little bit of a checkup just in front, the 42 and the 78, unable to really get together all that well. Lawson Field's going to try and side draft.
And there's a look, a beautiful shot down the super stretch at how the draft plays a role in the run to turn 3. You saw that Peel had the race lead momentarily, just barely nosed ahead, but side drafting with James Kunkel, lost all of that ground. You pack the air on the rear spoiler, and the car just takes a ton of drag on it, so you lose miles an hour down the straightaway, and the drafting help doesn't really help either. So for James Kunkel and Muscarella, it'll keep them stagnated at the front of the field. Muscarella will get to lead some more laps. James Kunkel sitting nicely in second, and is one of the 2 Dr. Squatch soap cars in this field alongside Dakota Curtis, who we mentioned with the Sydney Sweeney picture on the race car. James Kunkel electing to not have the model on the race car this time by, just having the soap brand on the side, front, and every end of this Toyota Camry. But he sits second, not pulling out of the lane just now. I think he understands what's at stake here if he does, and he doesn't want to be in front of Lawson Peel.
Do you think the spotter's getting distracted looking at that paint scheme?
I have no idea. Would you be distracted if you were the spotter?
I don't think I would make a comment on that on live.
Well, I'd say you can get them confused, though. It's kind of a spotter's nightmare because they're nearly the
Yeah.
identical paint scheme apart from Sydney Sweeney on the hood. But you've got the same color, same-ish design, same logos, same placement of everything else. So it is pretty much a spotter's nightmare. Similar-looking race cars here at the World Center of Racing, but Kunkel putting on a performance of a lifetime that easily could get him a super speedway win. And Kunkel has been in this position before. Talk about Atlanta several seasons ago on the super speedway configuration in the Sunoco Cup Series. Had led the race until the end, but because of a violation he did on the final lap of the race, the win was instead given to Fast Banana Racing's Curtis Kelly. So while Kunkel nearly had a shot at the W, it was taken away from him, and Kunkel finally got redemption later on in Sunoco Cup history, and he's definitely a strong force at the bigger super speedway, specifically at Atlanta. So probably not a surprise that we're seeing Kunkel this up front, this long, and being definitely pressure-filled as he hangs on with Muscarella to the outside. Let's get a look at what is happening further back in the field, Francisco, because you're taking note of it, and who's all the way back there?
Well, right back there at this moment in time is the 5 of Brandon Banks. He has just caught back up to the main pack. He was about a second behind with the help of Brad Fulham, but even further behind this group is the 7 of Chris Progar, Eric Schaefer, Ross Harlow, all in that group. Just kind of stay a little bit further back. You saw them involved in a couple of incidents there at the end of the second stage. But right now they are just riding around. And also, Kenneth, officially now the clocks have hit 0 in Kansas City. The Kansas City Chiefs are moving on to the Super Bowl, and it is a rematch of Super Bowl 57 just 2 years ago, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles once again.
Well, you know what? We're going to have another rematch. That'll be fun to watch for all the NFL hand-egg football fans out there. I'm curious to know what the drivers think here, Francisco, because I'm sure a lot of them keep up with the NFL. I'm sure a lot of them are big fans of NFL teams. You know, they get to race on Sunday nights, which is good, and it's a time that works for all of them, but they're missing a lot of these big games. They could even miss the big game itself in the Super Bowl, so I wonder what they're thinking while they're behind the wheel, or if they've got a screen, a TV near them, to which they can watch the game while racing at the same time.
I mean, I'm commentating and watching it at the same time, if that helps. So, I mean, I think these drivers, to some degree, they definitely will have it up. I mean, there's just no shot you're missing out the big game. Even if you say you're not going to watch it because you don't like the teams that are playing or all that, it's the Super Bowl. At the end of the day, it's what everyone shows up to watch. For no reason, it is the most watched sports game in the North American continent. So we'll watch that with plenty of grace, and we'll see who walks away with it this time. I think this is the second rematch that the Chiefs have had in a Super Bowl. They played the 49ers last year, and that was a rematch from their first Super Bowl appearance with Patrick Mahomes.
Hey, all I know is that I'm going to be excited for the football game, but I am going to be more excited for the Super Bowl halftime show. For those who don't know, Kendrick Lamar is going to be headlining Super Bowl halftime this year. He's going to have a guest feature SZA as a part of the performance there. And they've had plenty of bangers together, so it's really exciting to have another Super Bowl in the books and to have the performances at halftime that plenty will be watching, including all of these Sunoco Cup Series drivers, probably while they're on the racetrack. In sim, we just had 2 changes for the race lead. Make that 3. James Kunkel stole the lead from Muscarella. Justin Hendry momentarily took the spot, but Muscarella stands his ground, holds the fort. He's got the top spot as Kunkel wiggles his Toyota Camry off turn 4. A close call there.
And that puts Justin Hendry up in the top spot, with Timothy Stubblefield up in second. Your dual number 2 winner finds himself back in the front.
And here comes Justin Erb for the DOW Racing Camp to the inside. Stubblefield follows suit to the inside of Justin Hendry. Down the bottom alley, Timothy Stubblefield, the Duel 2 winner, in command of the feature race.
And look, it's the Duel 1 winner now trying to get back to the outside. So the Duel winners have done a great job here tonight and have proven themselves to work well in this bigger draft, and they're now battling for the top positions.
Well, look at Lawson Peel. That was the Napa Auto Parts Chevrolet that backed out. He's very much at the back end of this singular pack. Remember, this is a green flag stage that will end in pit road stops under green if it stays that way, but they are getting aggressive at the front. The Home Depot Chevrolet of Justin Erb surges to the race lead ahead of Alex Muscarella and Timothy Stubblefield. TOW Racing getting representation at the front of the field, lap 75. And how about Daniel Holdcroft, too, inside the top 7?
Yeah, I was just about to say, Daniel Holdcroft has done a good job of recovering, and he finds himself now into the top 5 with Justin Hendry just in front of him, and he's got help from Craig Parks in the 17 behind him. How about Craig Parks? As that is almost a moment there with the 85. They'll go 3 wide for second. Daniel was trying to go to the very bottom, and then I'll stay 3 wide as now the 85 of Justin Hendry gets stuck in the middle. Tried to go all the way to the bottom, but was just not clear, Kenneth, and he smartly realized it and stays in the middle and cost himself positions.
It's what we call the sucker hole. Thankfully, Hendry finds space. Casey Knighton being generous in allowing that space for Hendry to fill on the outside lane. But in the battle for the front, Justin Erb created a surge of a lifetime in the Mountain Dew Chevrolet of Daniel Holdcroft, to which we talked to him after his crash earlier on tonight, is now inside the podium spot with Craig Parks, who at once was at the very back of the field with his Drinkin' Bros Racing teammates. So how much things change in an instant. Holdcroft remains in third while everyone on the inside is trying to decide what they can do to get the best run. And how about Chris Grabeau? In the 25, the Toyota we haven't talked about all night long sits P5 at the moment.
And there they're negotiating the lapper. That's Parker Bland in the 13. We'll see if we can find a way to stay on this lead group so she can find a way to get back on the lead lap if a caution comes out. But they're starting to get strung out single file along this outside lane, Kenneth. So right now, despite all the action that's going on, this single file tells me that they're going to be pit stopped sometime soon. Just how soon, I'm not too particularly sure, but they're trying to click off these laps because we have just hit 48, I believe, yes, 49 laps to go, coming to 48 at the line.
Well, to give you a reference of a league that runs 75% fuel, here at Daytona you can go at least 30 to 35 laps on a single tank of gas, but there is 60% fuel for the cars here tonight, so a 15% difference. Of course, you have to go way less, and these guys just crossed the line for lap 17 on their stint. So take a guess as to what lap they may have to come down pit road. We'll have a quiz for that later on tonight, but it should be around lap 20 to 25. Close call for Daniel Holdcroft. Got a look at the outside wall and nearly got spun around by the Tide Chevrolet of Craig Parks.
Close moment there, and just like that, we're back double wide again. There's Justin Erb throwing the block on the 42 of James Kunkel. Kunkel giving the push on the bottom. And very quickly, the 2 Dr. Sparks cars have found themselves nose to tail on the racetrack.
Dakota Curtis started this race from pit road alongside Ross Harlow. He had to try and get his way back through the field with Harlow, nearly got put a lap down, and after 78 laps, Dakota Curtis is back in the game. Kunkel swaps to the outside to take the front row starting spot with Warren Kyle Keith right behind in second place. The 2 Toyotas in tandem working well off of 1 and 2. Kunkel has control.
And Erb is not quite giving up on the bottom. He actually has a good enough run with help from Dakota Curtis, and he's going to challenge for the top spot going into 3.
He's got a look there on the inside, and while Erb had spent a majority of this race hanging in the shadows, he is definitely putting himself in the spotlight now after rolling off in 14th from this race. It was a little bit before then, but at the moment playing heavy defense. Curtis on the outside wants the lead at the Trial Bowl.
And now the other Dr. Squatch car found his way to the front of the field.
So Dakota Curtis, for the first time, takes the race lead, and Justin Hendry wants to steal it away. We'll stop yapping. We'll give you a chance to enjoy the sights and sounds of the World Center of Racing with our KBRN. Crank it up. Dakota Curtis leads the field as the cross to the line for lap 84. Could not get that any more wrong, with Warren Kyle Keith right behind in second. Stempien, Erb, and Stubblefield, your top 5. Briefly had a look at James Kunkel at the front of this field with Justin Hendry, but Hendry just got shuffled out of line, and look at the gap from your top 4 on back. It's easily around 0.2 of a second, maybe more so, and they are shuffling down the Daytona super stretch. Stubblefield, in the attempt to help Warren Kyle Keith get back to the lead, leaves Dakota Curtis with the door wide open to steal the race lead once again, and Steven Stempien finds himself to second in 3 and 4.
He seems to find his way up here, doesn't he, that often, Steven Stempien. He goes from being he doesn't really steal the show like that. He's not super flashy. He's not really up and doing the kind of moves that we've seen a lot of drivers do tonight, but eventually you'll just look up at the scoreboard, you'll see the laps winding down, and boom, there's number 88.
And there's a look from his in-car camera, and he's dropping the Hammah Chevrolet along with his camera at the bottom right of the screen right there, and you can see how focused he is, settling in second place as it goes, and just giving the push to Curtis, not really doing much other than playing the assistant here, not going to be the aggressor. But we saw him make a swerving move to the inside of the racetrack to make an effort on the inside for at least the top 5, and it worked to his benefit. So Stempien chopping through the field as Alex Mascarella sends several cars down pit road. Is he going to be the only one? No, just a loose moment off four. So no call off pit road.
Wow, that was a moment there for Mascarella. Looks like he was trying to get in front of Kunkel, and I think there was some slight contact in the process, and that sent him loose all the way through, and he was able to save it. Shades to Kyle Busch.
Beautiful stuff. It almost appeared like he was going under to get onto pit road, but Alex Mascarella stays in line. He's got Ross Harlow right behind, but a drop off to 14th place. So now we ask the question, when you come down pit road with 25 laps in the booking, as there's a crash, Daniel Holdcroft gets into trouble at the back of the field, sends others hard into the wall off of turns 3 and 4.
Caution.
Chris Cabot is the man involved, and finally the yellow flag is ignited at lap 86. Daniel Holdcroft with severe right front damage.
For a brief moment, there wasn't a caution, and then it came out. And Kenneth, I believe it is a situation where the 31 blew up.
Just like Stempien did earlier on in the duels. We'll get a look here as he was rolling in front of the tied Chevrolet, Craig Parks. And business as usual, entering 3 and 4. Right about here's where the problem starts, and right in front of Parks is where he gets out of shape and goes hard into the wall, catching Chris Cabot along with him. We just mentioned the forward progress of Chris Cabot as he was moving through the field after some problems earlier on tonight. It appears his race is done and dusted from Daytona. Take a look.
So it wasn't actually that the 31 blew up, Kenneth. He just got so close to the 94 that he actually hit the brakes hard enough to where the car behind him couldn't predict that, and that's what started the contact. And unfortunately for Cabot, just nothing he can do there. Just an innocent bystander and all that.
And he is unfortunately taken out of tonight's race from Daytona, while Daniel Holdcroft on the other end sits 15th, but we know he's going to visit pit road at some point with all of the damage he has. Yeah, that is a broken toe link on the right front of his Chevrolet, so lengthy repairs ready for Holdcroft. And lately on iRacing, we've noted the recent update with these next-gen cars in the way they take damage. And prior, if you did get a toe link break on either end of the race car, it would be 7 to 8 minutes optional required on pit road that you would spend there. But because of the updated damage model, you could break a toe link and very well be very much out of the race. They could tell you that there's too much damage on the car and your race is over. Not sure what the exact situation is like for Holdcroft as he enters his stall, but we do know, Francisco, it's going to be a long while.
Yeah, and there you see just how bad of the pit entry it was just from the damage of his car, unable to steer. Yeah, look at that right front tire, Kenneth. That is not the kind of camber you want to run around here.
There's the race off
look,
pit
he's
road.
still backing it into it.
Yeah, he's still trying to get in. And, one thing with suspension damage is that when the car becomes nearly undrivable, if you miss your pit stall, chances are it's going to be almost impossible to readjust and get in the right place where the crew will service you. Sometimes you're too far to the left, too far to the right, too far forward, too far backward, or if the car is just beached at that point, you're going to have to tow it onto the pit lane, which will not take as long as if you towed on the racetrack, but if you towed from pit road, it will take you a couple of minutes max to be able to get back up and going. So Justin Erb is the race leader off of pit road. Steven Stempien, Dakota Curtis, Chris Progar, and Justin Hendry, your current top 5. It has been a very fun one from the virtual Daytona International Speedway. We'll take a short moment and be right back, but don't go anywhere. More coverage of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series is next.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Back live from the virtual Daytona International Speedway, host of race number 1 in the first season of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series on the K Bueno Racing Network. Glad that you're with us over these first 89 laps. Still a long way to go from this 2.5-mile super speedway. Kenneth Bueno and Francisco Bacalhau along with you. You've had plenty of action on the track for sure. And Justin Erb will lead this one back to the green flag with Steven Stempien on the outside. Dakota Curtis, who spent a decent amount of time at the front of the field right before the caution came out, is going to be the inside of road number 2. Chris Progar will be in P4. Justin Hendry lining up as the last car inside the top 5. Some scares there for Hendry late in the going, but he's been able to continue where he's at in a good track position. Well, let's see if we can get a clean run till the end. It is about 35 laps to go, 36 laps to go actually on this restart, and it will be close. Erb, Stempien, a pair of Chevrolets on the front row to the Geico restart zone, and it's a solid jump from Erb, but there's a ton of space behind. Green flag.
And that's been the story of these restarts, just a lot of spread out action. You look further back, and at the hands of the 94 of Timothy Stubblefield and Brad Fulham, where that gap currently exists, but they'll immediately close that gap up once they get up to speed and the draft starts to really kick in. And up in the front is Justin Erb at the top side, leading away with Dakota Curtis now on the bottom. Has actually pretty good strong momentum. He'll be side by side with a chance to try and take the lead here, but no, all of a sudden Stempien and Chris Progar get a big enough front to surge them out in front.
And the DTH Chevrolet of Stempien stuck in the middle of a TOW Racing sandwich. Erb and Progar, the two teammates there in those Chevrolets, could try and shuffle Stempien out of the way to work together. Meanwhile, the Toyotas are struggling to get the horsepower needed to get right on the inside of Stempien or Erb and make this a proper challenge for the top spot. Warren Kyle Keith decides to shoot for it, goes to the inside in turn 1 looking for third place.
And he tried to side draft the 7, and he almost makes contact right there with the 7 and the 23 in the progress. But you see, gets enough of an arrow push from the 43, and he's now going to get up just barely alongside Steven Stempien now. So Warren Kyle Keith, as this race is winding down, getting to its late stages, is trying to put more and more of up a fight.
It was nearly a disastrous move there as he was merging in between Chris Progar and Zachary Hall. Nearly crazy, but he's going to be able to push forward off of turn 4. Warren Kyle Keith peaking at the top spot, and off the bad luck in the duels earlier on tonight, he's finding some good with 34 laps to go.
He's got some help from Dakota trying to see if they can work together on the outside. Like I said, on the straightaway, just gets a huge enough of a run. There's the corner advantage that they have. Just immediately eats into the gap that they have, and now he gets side by side for the lead.
Warren Kyle Keith looking for the lead once again. An onboard look with Justin Erb and his TOW Racing Chevrolet. Someone who is also hungry for a win. To get his first one in the first race of this series would be absolutely monumental, but he's got a tough challenge on the inside. About 5 cars deep down there, most of them Toyotas, and then Timothy Stubblefield, the lone Ford Mustang. Warren Kyle Keith with a whale of a block, and to the inside goes Erb for the race lead. Crossover.
Yeah, there was a close call there off of turn 4 and the push that the 43 gave the 78, but they were able to make it out the other side alive, and now it's kind of flip-flopped them. Now the 78 of Warren Kyle Keith has to work with Steven Sempian, while Justin Erb has the inside help of Dakota Curtis.
There's a look on board on the left side of your screen with Curtis, who's pushing Erb with all that he's got, and Warren Kyle Keith just barely there on the right side of your screen in that Bass Pro Shops Toyota Camry, similar to what Martin Truex Jr. used to run for Team Furniture Road several years ago. And Francisco, I mean, you mentioned it to me, the fact that this will be a very close restart on the pit window, and it will be maximum for everyone to save as much fuel as possible, or just elect for a pit stop at the right time, because this is crunch time with under 30 laps to go in a couple laps time.
Well, the way this race is going, Kenneth, I would say when the pit window opens, you probably would want to consider coming down pit road, just because it'll guarantee you to get to the finish. Of course, the scare is going to be having enough for overtime, but if you get enough yellows, you can save the fuel that you could use in that overtime finish. So if we're guessing that these guys could go somewhere between 25-ish laps on fuel, then I would say the pit window is going to open here in a handful of laps, and certainly after lap 100, you could see people dive it down the pit lane.
And now you got to ask who goes with who. We haven't yet had a green flag pit stop sequence in this race, and we anticipated that stage 3 would be the place where it happens, and we found ourselves with a caution not that long ago, so it reset the field, allowed everyone to come down pit road, and as we stand, they've only been on track for about 7 laps since that restart that we're just mentioning. So it really is a case of what can you adjust and how do you put yourself in the right position to come down pit road with the right squad? Because as we've seen, you know, 2 cars, 1 car, they do not do it justice here at the World Center of Racing. To gain track position, Spinner, Jason Hastings, Brad Fulham, Justin Hendry, and many others create the big one on the back straightaway.
A handful of guys go spinning, some through the grass. Doesn't look like too many drivers have big enough damage on their race cars. Just a couple of harmless spins. You see Hastings sideways through the grass even after the incident happened. He probably has the most damage on his race car. There's Lawson Field getting through. And that looked to have started a little bit further back. We were keeping an eye on the battle for the race lead. But that was Brad Fulham. Just barely got the tap from the 42, Kenneth, and that's what sent them all spinning.
Let's got to look at it from the right side of your screen as you take a look at the damaged and bruised Brad Fulham machine. And yeah, just started in the mid-pack there, around where Fulham and Jason Hastings were on the Daytona Superstretch. Just mere contact and switching lanes in the middle of the racetrack. And Francisco, I mean, split-second decisions there, but when you're changing lanes, you really have to commit at moment's notice, and it's really tough when you get that decision wrong.
And watch it here, watch it happen in real time. Just nothing that you can do, especially when it blocks the racetrack like that, because what else can you do besides brake and try to go where they're not?
So we have several cars involved in that most recent accident. Casey Knighton appears to be, it looks like all the way at the back of the field. Not sure if he picked up a ton of damage on that incident, but Jason Hastings, easily the most bruised car, if it's not Brad Fulham on that back straightaway. Brandon Banks had gotten a piece of that. And all of those guys will come down pit road this time by Ross Harlow. He's been through a lot tonight. Toe link damage earlier on in this race. Had to go repair that. And this battered the Valhalla Project. Till Valhalla Project, actually, Chevrolet will come in for DTH Racing along with Alex Muscarella and several others. So while a lot of these guys have come in on pit road, it appears we've got everybody at least 12th on back that are coming in, including Muscarella here.
It's going to be a close one, Kenneth. They don't have enough fuel to get to the end. We've documented that. But just how much do they have? And if we do get an overtime, even if we get some cautions, I think that's a bit of a stretch, because I believe with the 60% that they can go definitely 25 laps. And right now when they're pitting, it is 28 laps to go. Oh man, these last handful of laps could feature some fuel mileage.
It's going to come to a very close decision for a bunch of these guys while they are out saving fuel now. Well, we have questions in the broadcast booth. Let's get some answers from a driver on track. We've got Warren Kyle Keith joining us now from the lead. Warren, you got a copy?
That I do.
All right. Well, 04 name. It's thankfully, I'm definitely happy to be talking to you once again. It's been a long time, but Warren, you're out in the lead with a little over, a little under now, 30 laps to go in this race. Margin on fuel, very close. What's it looking like from your end?
Well, we have 100% fuel, so we're actually good to go. We're showing 32 and a half laps to go here on fuel, 29 to go in the race. So yeah, we're good on fuel. Tires we're good on. We just took tires at last stop. Now it's just after hanging out in the back of the pack all day with the damaged cars, just kind of buying time, trying to see if we can get up here and get a win here.
All right, well, I guess that answers the question that we had for a little while now, whether anyone could even make it to the end of this race, barring, if we stay green from here on out. So that's good news. But you've had a journey through this field, no doubt about it. You were at the back of this field plenty times. You worked your way up a couple times as well. And after finding trouble in the duels, you've been able to find a lot more success here in this main race. What has created that level of success in this 125 lapper, and how have you used it to your advantage?
It's just, just waiting for attrition. This whole pack is just so good here at the Super Speedway. There's a lot of good plate racers here. I know Stempy's a good plate racer. There's a couple other guys up here that are really good. So it's just biding your time, making track position. That's what we did. We pitted halfway through that second stage, got fuel in the car. So when we came back down, we had fuel and tires before. Came back down, just took fuel only, and we came out sixth after being dead last coming in. So it's all about just timing your pit strategies and getting it lined up. But now it's going to come down to just making sure you're in the right lane, not really throwing any late blocks, but making the right moves to get yourself positioned so where the energy comes up behind you. You're not playing the 8-ball here and trying to catch up. That's going to be the biggest thing. But bumps are going to get harder. Side drafts are definitely going to get harder to not get into. And then, the aggression's going to get raised up a couple bars here, especially when we get to about lap 110.
It's a loaded statement to say that the intensity is going to rise up, because it's good for us in the broadcast booth. For driver base, probably pretty stressful for you behind the wheel. Warren, we appreciate the time. Best of luck on this next restart from the lead.
Thanks, guys. Should be a good show.
So that is Warren Kyle Keith in a voice chat with plenty of the guys from D Legacy Motor Club, trying to work together to get a race win here at the World Center of Racing. It will be Warren Kyle Keith, Steven Stempy in your front row, Chris Progar and Timothy Stubblefield back in row 2, Zachary Hall, Justin Err back in row 3, with Justin Hendry, Dakota Curtis back to 8th place, Kip Easley, who's led a good amount of tonight's event, from 9th, and Jason Anderson will roll off from the top 10. Well, let's do this one. Warren Kyle Keith, Steven Stempy on the front row with a little under 30 laps to go from Daytona Beach, Florida. Can we finish this one under green? It's a shootout to the end. Warren Kyle Keith takes the green flag from Barney the Flagman. We're back underway.
And he gets a good enough push there to keep the top spot, get in front of Steven Stempien, and he's going to go up to cross to block Chris Progar. Stempien's going to get to the inside, and he'll have help from the 94 of Timothy Stubblefield, who's found his way back up here even after the trouble he's had. But we'll see if this outside is enough to give Warren Kyle Keith the advantage down the surface stretch.
Gonna push him to the front. Chris Progar is, and there's Zachary Hall, the TrophySmack.com Toyota Camry, making an effort for Category 5 Esports. Chris Progar sneaks down low. He wants the lead in 3 and 4, but with no help.
And there you see Stempien's going to try and get back to his bumper. They'll remain side by side, deadlocked for the top even positions as we approach the line to start our 100th lap.
Chris Progar on the inside, hungry for a W, and he's got one of the best super speedway drivers right behind him in Steven Stempien, but it is not enough to overcome the hurdle that is around 3 car lengths of cars on the outside lane. Warren Kyle Keith takes the top spot, and 2 Toyotas follow suit, and look at Kip Easley. Shot out of a cannon. Remember, he was further back in the top 10. Now he's got a shot at the front underneath to Chris Progar for some help on the bottom.
And how about that 13 to the outside of Easley, who's just moved up into the top 5 position? That's Parker Bland. She's done a great job recovering in this race, was a lap down at one point, and now she finds herself up inside the top 5, coming to 25 laps to go.
Parker Bland looking to claw and snag through this field as much as she can. She's got 4th. There's 5th place. Lawson Peel to the bottom. All the Chevrolets banding together with American horsepower. Steven Stepien gets pushed out of the way near the back end of the top 10. Warren Kyle Keith in control, and Alex Muscarella through the middle. Casey Knighton's in the wall, but he saves it.
He saves it, but the Doctor's Clutch cars have to check up to avoid causing an incident there, so they're going to scatter the back end of this pack. And look at the 3 wide further up with Muscarella in the middle with Stempien. They're actually trying to see if they could shuffle their way to the outside and get 2 wide, and they'll do just that. They'll find a place in line. All the while on the bottom, it is Kip Easley and Lawson Peel, teammates who were dominating earlier in this race.
And teammates are finding each other on track, and there's a spinner. Jason Anderson collects Richard Swavely, yellow flag out off turn 4. And while Swavely saves it, Jason Anderson, with a bit of right front damage, gets back out on track, and we're back under the yellow flag with 23 laps to go.
It looks like it's a relatively simple one here. Kenneth, the 92 was running around the middle. Here comes the 4 of Jason Hastings, and the 92 just kind of comes down, and I think the 4 may have come up just a little bit. And in the process of trying to avoid, looks like the 32 may have gotten hit by the 16 to send him into this one.
We're going to look on board with Swavely in the background of all this. So up in front is the In-N-Out Chevrolet of Jason Hastings, the Taco Bell machine. Oh, those are 2 delectable machines getting eaten up. And Richard Swavely gets stuffed into the mess.
Let's see if we can also ride on board with Jason Anderson. Looking back at the 4 of Jason Hastings as he was working his way through here. There's Hastings in the In-N-Out machine, and there's Anderson, and there's the contact. Just does a 360, and then boom, comes in Swavely, getting pushed in by that 16. Some damage on the right front, like you mentioned, of Anderson's car, but I think he might actually be okay enough. It doesn't look anything race-ending.
And Jason Anderson almost ended up looking like some beef in a Crunchwrap Supreme there off of turn 4. But it seems like he's mostly okay. We'll take the trip down pit road, and I'm sure he will like the extra reassurance on fuel if he was questioning that already. So Warren Kyle Keith continues up front. Lawson Peel to second. Zachary Hall putting on a whale of a race tonight for Category 5 Esports. And watching his teammate Cedric Hunter go down after falling a lap down from the leaders at the beginning of this one. And definitely out there on his own. We talk about Timothy Stubblefield being the only guy in his group basically with the run, and the only guy trying to work together with his teammates. I mean, Zachary Hall is putting up a solo effort to see what he can do, and easily in a position to win this race in the closing stages. We'll see if we can get a word from somebody in the field that's been running well tonight. We've got plenty of guys in the field. Why don't we dial up Craig Parks, who survived up until this point and has done really well for himself in his tied number 17 Chevrolet. Craig, you got a copy with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, Craig, good to talk to you. We know that you pitted around 6 laps ago. We talked to Warren Kyle Keith. He told us he is good on fuel. What is your situation like fuel-wise?
Oh, I'm good on fuel. I'm almost 10 laps to the good right now. So, yeah, fuel is not a problem.
All right, so that's good news to hear. I'm sure that most of the other drivers are also good on gas until the checkered flag. So it means track position, track position, track position. You've gained and lost a ton of that over the course of this race. How could you best describe the way your night has gone and the frenetic energy that we've seen tonight at Daytona?
Man, it's a roller coaster out here. You go up, you go down, you get shuffled around, people spin around you. And unfortunately, I got into Holcroft, and there was just too much of a checkup, and I didn't have time to react to it. But man, it's a lot of fun though. It is a blast out here tonight.
And we know that you've got some races under your belt with the 4-wide camp that we broadcast here on KBRN as well. A lot of these guys from this series, the same way, you know, Brandon Banks, Eric Schaefer, Lawson Peel, you name it. Ton of guys who also race on Wednesdays as well. So how fun has it been to get into this revived Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series race and to be with all of the guys at DVR and make a run at it tonight?
Man, I feel super honored to be able to run with these guys and everything. I feel like I'm around a bunch of all-stars and everything, and I'm just I'm just, riding around for the ride. But I got to give a huge shout out to all the DBR guys because they all helped me so much, helped me get up to speed. And I'm historically a road guy, so some of the oval stuff doesn't come super easy to me.
Well, Craig, we know that you're starting in the mid-pack, but we definitely know that anything could happen at these super speedways, so we wish you best of luck on the next restart and a beautiful Chevrolet out there on track.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. Yeah, it's Daytona, so, roll the dice.
All right, that's Craig Parks, driver for Drinkin' Bros Racing. He will roll off in 17th at the drop of the green flag. So good news is that there are no fuel concerns, so whatever we have been trying to pump up for the last 45 minutes is now null and void, but the good news is that we just have a showdown on track. So 21 laps to go. Warren, Kyle, Keith, and Lawson Peel on the front row. Francisco, what do we see from here? What do you see out of it?
Chaos. Chaos is going
All
to
right.
await us in these last handful of laps, Kenneth. I think that's the simple answer, but also just we've seen a lot of action all night long, up and down through the field, and there's no reason why it won't pick up in the 21 laps that we'll have on this restart, given the fact that, well, the win is now on the cards.
And after 60 laps of dual racing to decide the field, you've got 104 lap complete in this main race, and it will be wild. I know anything can happen is the cliche word for a broadcaster, but we really do mean it when we say it, because Daytona has been unpredictable as ever. Steven Stempien won the last Sunoco Cup Series race here at Daytona in regular season opening conditions. He sits back on the outside of row number 4 in position number 8. Well, it's one Warren Kyle Keith to lead us back to the point at lap number 105. Lawson Peel to react with Zachary Hall right behind. Kip Easley in a DBR Chevrolet helping Keith to the front. Back to the action at Daytona International Speedway, and Lawson Peel gets a good jump and some help to turn 1.
He's trying to see if he can take the lead away. He might get the help here now on the bottom, as they still have a ways to go to get up to speed. He has the nose out in front, but the outside just looks a little bit more organized, and that'll give him the run down here on the back straightaway.
And there is the run off of the 31 degrees of banking. Warren Kyle Keith with a push. Kip Easley wants no more in the help. He goes inside with Lawson Peel behind. Kip Easley looking for the top spot again.
Warren Kyle Keith is not going to give up, Kenneth, now. He has Parker Bland behind him, trying to see if she can push him to the free lead.
And what a race it's been by Kip Easley. Has led a chunk of this one from the World Center of Racing. There's Alex Muscarella in the Lowe's Chevrolet in the background in the effort to make it 3 wide. Backs out at that point, but Easley now has the help he's wanted with Lawson Peel right behind. It's the exact order that led Easley to the Stage 2 victory at lap number 60. It's a far cry from that 46 laps later, and Warren Kyle Keith is going to respond down the super stretch. Parker Bland hauling the UPS Camry to second place.
And all behind that duo is Steven Stempien, who's been making of these big runs. He is up there trying to make moves, and look at Muscarella through the middle.
And Muscarella has help too. Jason Hastings, and it looks like James Kunkel in the Squatch Machine with his teammate Dakota Curtis right behind for D Legacy Motor Club. Keep an eye on them, sitting middle 3 wide. Does anyone flinch to the trial? Well, the answer is no. Back to turn 1, the bottom alley with the advantage, the top side in the high skies, looking to grab it all back. Warren Kyle Keith, the push from Parker Bland, and it's 2 versus 2 off of turn 2 this time.
And now they have the run here down the back straightaway. Here comes the push from Steven Stempien to the back of the 13. And there's in the middle the 42, trying to see if he can make the middle work, but just no real doing there. There's the inside with the surge of Kip Easley and Lawson Peel with the 23 of Zachary Hall to the top 3.
Oh, and the ambitious attempt to get to the middle lane. James Kunkel nearly got rid of the entire run of the outside lane, harnessed at the exit of turn 3. Now Lawson Peel goes up high. Zachary Hall goes up as well to block. Warren Kyle Keith decides to answer with a crossover. Back to turn 1. Justin Hendry will have a look to the inside. He's going to help the Camry back to the turn 1 spot, and Kip Easley remains in control, but the answer is going to be very much questionable with 18 laps to go as to how long he can hold on to it. Lawson Peel right behind in help, and Kip Easley stays up front, at least for right now.
And how aggressive, when you get to the top spot, are you going to be with the blocks? We've seen blocks so far tonight, but obviously as you get closer to the end of this race, the blocks will get more intense, more insane. just to try and keep the top spot, because that means you control what happens between now and the checker flag as much as possible.
Here's the onboard look from Warren Kyle Keith, the leading car on the inside. Now not. Second place in this lane now with Parker Bland deciding to make the effort down low. It's basically a swap from what we had about 3 or so laps ago when the Drinking Bros Racing Chevrolets were at the bottom and the Toyotas were on the very outside. But as we mentioned earlier, that top side, if you can get good enough organization and many cars around you, you have enough help to be able to exceed the drivers on the bottom by at least 3 car lengths. But keep an eye on the developing lanes that are around, because Alex Muscarella has attempted 3 wide at least 3 or 4 times, and now James Kunkel wants to look at 3 abreast in turns 3 and 4.
He's been doing that all night long, but here comes the 13. Parker Bland now battling for the lead, and she's got it.
Parker Bland wiggles off turn 4, but she's got the top spot and will lead the first lap of the night from the World Center of Racing with 16 laps to go. Beautiful stuff.
And there's Kip Aisley fighting back on the outside. Lawson Peel in suit. You look a little further back, Chris Progar has kept himself up inside this top 10. So is Justin Hendry. But Steven Stempion is not quite done. He is falling back to the 4th spot of the outside lane, but he is not giving up as there's a stumble in the inside lane that gives Kip Easley and Lawson Peel the advantage.
Parker Bland tries to lead this race. Nearly a spin behind. That was James Kunkel saving his Toyota Camry, emerging back without a problem. Near danger there in the mid portion of the field, but they all keep it collected and we stay green.
And that cost the inside lane, because look at the advantage now that the outside has. Steven Stempion has cleared himself from the bottom. Does he try to make a move here? And the 78 of Kyle is going to make a move. Kyle Keith gets around the 13. Bland now losing spots.
It looks like no response from anyone on the inside. They're starting to get hampered by the side draft. And it specifically involves the guys going 3 wide with Alex Muscarella, James Kunkel. When they peek through the middle, they have a chance to break up all the momentum from that bottom lane. And now they have to reorganize and do it all over again, this time with a brand new face at the front. And it's Timothy Stubblefield, who's gone through absolute hell and back to be where he is with 14 laps to go at the stripe. Again, the only Ford Mustang in the field is doing heavy lifting here. Steven Stempion trying to beat him off of the corner, and Warren Kyle Keith just giving his best shot, but right now it is not working. As Jason Hastings, the in-and-out Chevrolet, was involved in one of our previous cautions. How about him? He wants the lead inside the top 5. An onboard look with Hastings, who has been near success at super speedways and leaks passes a big crash. James Kunkel is around in the middle of the super stretch. Yellow flag waves. Tony Kivitt enters the scene late. And with 14 laps remaining, we've got another caution flag from Daytona. And it is heavy suspension damage for James Kunkel. The Dr. Squatch machine is torn up, and that may be race over in the final home stretch. As we'll try to get a look at exactly what transpired off of that replay and what happened with James Kunkel there on the back straightaway. He was nearly in the middle 3 wide, and I believe we found the trouble. Warren Kyle Keith is the car right in front, car number 78. The bright greenish blue number 42 is the man to watch here. Middle 3 wide, and as Warren Kyle Keith hooks Timothy Stubblefield, that's what initially creates the contact, is the catalyst for the accident, and James Kunkel is merely just spun around in the process, but at the end gets all of that suspension damage from the hit with Tony Kivitt at the back end of this crash. We'll get another look at it, this time from Stubblefield. Looks like he just crossed up the racetrack into Warren Kyle Keith, catches Ross Harlow, and while the majority of them are able to save the race car, I mean, you still have some damage there at the end of it. Ross Harlow, who has been through a ton, car almost looks completely junked, is still somehow surviving. And for once, another time, we're going to have a yellow flag with under 15 to go from the World Center of Racing. Kip Easley is the race leader. Lawson Peel back in second. Zachary Hall is the last car on the podium. Steven Stempion, the hopeful to win this race, is in P4. Dakota Curtis, the fellow teammate of James Kunkel, escaped the trouble. He's in P5. Jason Hastings, who, you know, we talk about how sometimes unimportant track position is. Hastings was crashed about 10 or so laps ago. He's back in the mix in 6th place. Alex Muscarella, the dual one winner, is back in 7th. Brandon Banks, who is strong at super speedways, usually is in P8. Jason Anderson, who led this field from the front row, is in P9. And CJ Munier, the New Jersey Devils Chevrolet, is going to be on the outside of row 5 inside the top 10. Well, Francisco, you anticipated chaos. I'd say that you're completely right. And it's absolute heartbreak for James Kunkel. I mean, absolute stunner of a run that he was putting together tonight. And merely could have escaped that accident without severe damage. But as Tony Kivitt gets into him late, that's a right front toe link that's torn up. Therefore, Kunkel will have to sit this one on pit road, awaiting what could have been in these final laps from Daytona Beach.
Yeah, that right front tire looks pretty bent. That's probably going to cost him a chance at the victory here tonight, but it's not representative of the kind of performance he was putting on. His number 42, Dr. Squash Machine, he was definitely pretty quick all night long with his teammate. They were able to put some good moves, but Dakota Curtis still inside the top 5, has an opportunity to make something happen here when we go green for inside 10 laps to go. But up front, your front row has been the dominant duo of Chip Easley and Lawson Pio. Those guys have been some of the faster cars here tonight, just leading so many laps and just staying in the front of the field when it matters most. Chip Easley, like we mentioned at the top of the show, finished P2 in the 4-wide race here, all the way back in.
Just speechless. I guess that's how long ago it was. I mean, I can barely think of how long ago it was, too. Several months back, and the time flies by really fast. And I'm sure that for a lot of these guys, when the Sunoco Cup Series announced its closure, I mean, a lot of them, including myself, pretty sad to hear the news. Understanding, of course, of what Dakota Curtis and the league admins had to go through, all of the effort they've put in since the pandemic in 2020 to create that series. But, I mean, Chris Progar and Steven Stempien, once again, got to give the credits to them. Not only, I mean, I appreciate them reaching out to me to have this series covered on the Cable NL Racing Network, but the absolute outpouring love for them to this series about the driver base, all the friends that they've made over the last 4 years. They don't want to give up on it, and so reviving this series has turned into an ultimate classic in this race 1 at Daytona. As we get the field settled up for a restart inside 10 laps to go, here's a quick look at the Season 1 schedule and what we could encounter for the rest of the 2025 campaign. Of course, we start tonight at Daytona. Once we cross things off, we're headed to West Coast Racing. Sin City will greet us next Sunday night at Las Vegas Motor Speedway to kick off February. Then we go to Phoenix, an auto club to end our West Coast swing. We go to Illinois, Chicagoland Speedway for race number 5. And then we go road course racing at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Road America will greet the field later on in the year in March. Loudon will be refreshed for the build. Well, it's already been refreshed after a while, but in March it will host a refreshed race for this series. Martinsville going to be a definitely wild one for sure at the Paperclip in Virginia. Talladega, Dover, Michigan, Pocono, and the list continues. We barely see repeating tracks. And then when we start the playoffs in Charlotte, that's where we gather the best 16 of the field and get them going for an inaugural DTH Cup Series Championship. Well, we know that the storylines building up to the finale become so grandiose and so great, but the storylines pave here. They start at this moment at Daytona, and one fairy tale story could be written inside 10 laps to go at a prestigious superspeedway like this one, with Chip Easley trying to get his first win, Lawson Pio trying to continue cementing himself as an all-time great, Zachary Hall starting this race and restart from 3rd, trying his best to get to the front and end this one with a W. Steven Stempien wanting to get the DTH Chevrolet and dropping the Hammah victory lane. Let's see what happens. 10 to go at the stripe. Green flag in the air.
And Lawson Pio didn't get as great of a launch as maybe he was expecting, trying to see if he can work with his teammate, but instead Chip Easley will find his way up to the outside, and that's going to help Steven Stempien, who we're on board with, try to see if he can do something with those teammate duo. He has help, does Steven Stempien behind him at the hands of the 4 of Jason Hastings, the 23 of Zachary Hall fighting back on the bottom.
Stempien holds great power and responsibility as that 3rd car in the lane. He can easily decipher what the top 2 are doing down the super stretch. The answer is a ton of wiggling, but they've been able to keep place. And Zachary Hall, who made the effort to the inside, is getting pushed by Dakota Curtis, trying to make this one a proper fight at the front with the Toyotas. But they've been on the back end of the conversation for most of the night while they've led a good amount of this race. Yes, the Chevrolets have taken charge this time. Chip Easley leads them back to the stripe. 9 laps to go in turn 1.
And Hall has a run going on the bottom. He has help from Dakota Curtis, trying to see if he can get back up there. He's side by side with Peel for the second spot. He's going to get to the inside of Kip Easley for the lead.
Here comes Zachary Hall. Brand new name to the inside, and watch 3 wide there. Jason Hastings is peeking there for a moment with Brandon Banks and CJ Munier to help. Those are Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets that you can keep an eye on because they could get Stepien out of the way and make it a DBR 1 through 5 on the very outside lane. Hall with the push from Curtis to the race lead and to 8 laps to go in search of his first career victory.
A little bit further behind this group, Brad Fulham just got shuffled out from the second group. He had big nose damage on his race car. That now leads at the 16 of Ross Harlow to the top of that second group, all about 3 seconds off of the race lead. These are a bunch of damaged cars, Kenneth, but they're still on the lead lap, hoping for some kind of caution here. But Zachary Hall finds himself at the front. Dakota Curtis now working with Muscarella trying to take away the top position.
And don't look now, but there's a middle lane forming. Jason Hastings just got under Steven Stepien, and they're going to flush out Zachary Hall. Kip Easley looked for the lead. Now Dakota Curtis answers with a run of his own off turn 4. Dakota Curtis to the point in Daytona.
And Stepien's going to help Hall try to make that third line work. They're trying to maintain position as, look at those two find a way to tandem out there and clear the 92 for a good bend. There goes Kip Easley, the block by Muscarella, and they go spinning the 43 across the field, the big one.
And it's a huge crash in turn 1. Curtis, Muscarella, Stepien, Hall, Craig Parks, Munier, and the list grows. Our biggest crash of the night occurs with 7 laps remaining. And Kip Easley and all that escapes with the top spot as the field wrecks in front of him.
Unreal. We saw it just in front of us, Kenneth. It was an aggressive block. We talked about how aggressive these blocks would get. Muscarella thought it was time. He said, it's time for me to make this move to try and give myself a best chance to win this race. We're going to watch it from high above, the best view we've got for this. Gets a bad position to block from Easley, and that sends them spinning into the 43. Which was the race leader, and that basically blocked the racetrack for everybody from behind.
And it's that block from Muscarella, right, that definitely sends Muscarella out of shape. And somehow Kip Easley is able to maneuver through that, but about everybody else gets caught up in a huge crash, and it's an absolute stack up for plenty of those heavy-hitting names in the field. I mean, Zachary Hall was near in position to get a race victory. Chris Progar, who was here as well, gets caught up in the mess late. Steven Stepien, the drop in the Hammah Chevrolet, gets collected. Dakota Curtis, Alex Muscarella, and it is absolute ugliness in turn 1 as the field just about wrecks everyone there in that 1 cent block. I mean, we talk about just how dangerous and volatile these next-gen cars are in the draft, especially when you block a run of momentum. It stacks up the field, no one else can react, and you've got definitive problems. There's a look from Eric Schaefer, who just barely gets around the mayhem.
Then you can just stop like he did, and you should be fine, but it's easier said than done. Here's the onboard we have from CJ Munier, who's in the thick of it all, watching it all happen out of his windshield. Gets sent right into the wall, and boom.
Yeah, nothing he can do there. The Verona, New Jersey native, just in the heart of that accident, basically. And that will take out plenty of names tonight. I mean, we're going to have a heap of drivers on pit road, that's for sure. But as for everyone else, I mean, now they have to play Survivor here and figure out what they're going to do with a lesser car count now that we've had the biggest crash of the race. Not that they're completely out of it for sure, but many of those guys had either race-altering damage or race-ending damage. A lot of them coming in this time by a lap 121. Zachary Hall is in. He pitted from second place. Was one of those front runners, now heavily damaged on the front end of the race car. Alex Muscarella, who won his way into this second row on the starting grid tonight from Daytona. Heavy right front damage. Dakota Curtis becomes the second Dr. Swatch car to get a piece of dirtiness on his car, and lots of damage to go with it. You've got Craig Parks, Casey Neiden, Parker Bland. I mean, a ton of torn up race cars that may end up seeing the end of the tow hook by the time this checkered flag is out. But what that does mean, Francisco, is that we still have to keep this race going. About 4 laps to go. And as far as we see it, I'm not sure if we are going to enter overtime for certain because there is still a bit of a buffer. However, we will have a restart inside at least 3 or 2 laps to go. So the tension is very high.
Absolutely, and I believe we'll get the 1 to green when they approach the finish line on this next lap, which would mean the restart will be with 3 laps to go. So I'm expecting a 3-lap restart here, Kenneth, which, I mean, it's basically almost like an overtime restart. You just have the extra lap in between, but we won't be short of any kind of action in these last moments of the race. And it wouldn't surprise me if we enter dropping the hammer overtime here on the Cable Racing Network with the way the race has been all night and just the most knowing that it's go time, because we might not have seen the last bit of the cautions, as we have now Lawson Peel joining us in the booth, and we'll make sure he has a copy with us. Lawson, it's Francisco in the booth. You got me?
I got you, Francisco. What's up?
Well, Lawson, it's been a fast night for yourself and your teammate Kip Easley. You're going to find yourself here with about 3 laps to go. Can you kind of talk us through what the race has been like for you two and what you're going to have to do to win this race?
It's been a really good race, lots of good racing, and been kind of lucky to miss a few of these incidents like that one right there. That one was really close. Just lucky to have a chance here and not have a wrecked car just yet. So just try to keep the car clean and control the lane like we've been doing here. Kip and I have been working very well together. He got that stage win a little earlier, so that was pretty fun. And yeah, at this point, we're committed to just trying to stay up here, and you got to find a safe space somewhere. Sometimes the very front's about your safest option, so we're committed to it, and we'll try to keep it here.
On the last lap, Lawson, when if it comes down between yourself and Kip Easley off of turn 4, who's it going to be?
Well, if it's just a 2-car breakaway and there's nobody within like 20 car lengths of us, that's one thing. But, don't want to break out of line and start side drafting each other and slowing each other down if there's somebody behind us with, a chance to get to us. So just kind of have to call that on the fly and see how it shakes out here. We could kind of have a wreck during the white where we only have a few cars left, or we could just stay packed up all the way to the end. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Appreciate the time, Lawson. We'll let you get ready for this overtime restart, or this 3-lap to go restart.
All right. I'll talk to you in just a minute.
As Lawson Peel from second place on the restart with 3 laps to go. It's Kip Easley, the race leader this time. Jason Anderson rolling third, Justin Urban fourth. Justin Hendry, the top 5 secured with Brandon Banks on the inside there in row 3. If we get a caution flag, we will extend this race past scheduled distance. We'll head into dropping the Hammah overtime, but for right now, we've got a restart inside 3 to go with 2 of the strongest Chevrolets in the field commanding the group. Back to the first corner. Pace car is down. Will that be the last time we see it? Kip Easley and Lawson Peel, the pair of teammates, take the field back underway. And is this a designed approach by Easley to let Lawson Peel come down? It may be so, but Jason Anderson will fill the space on the inside back to turn 1.
If you look further back of this field, it's kind of spread out beyond the top 10. So you're going to look at about 10 cars here really packed together. As the outside gets really scrambled up, you see the 20 almost takes it 3 wide on the outside from just the kind of push he had received from the 85. And they're going to get squared away now. Lawson Peel's going to clear for second.
And we've got Tony Kivitt there in third on the inside. Bunch of DBR representation now. This is where they've got the strong arm. 2 laps to go at the exit of turn 4. Jason Anderson is going to get a huge run off of turn 4. And Brandon Banks says, I'm going through the middle. 3 wide in the tri-oval.
That's going to shuffle the 92 all the way back with 2 laps to go. Here comes the 5 of Brandon Banks, Kenneth, who has found himself in this top 5 late in this going. The 20 of Justin Erb is not quite done yet. He's going to pull down in front of Banks and see if Banks is willing to help him.
Erb has led a couple of laps tonight from Daytona, so he is strong enough to lead the field off of the corner. Brandon Banks is giving him the shove of a lifetime, and the number of cars in the main pack is starting to dwindle. We enter the white flag lap. Next time by, Lawson Peel gives the push to Kip Easley. They flirt down low, but look at the run from Justin Erb. He's got the race lead barely off turn 4 to the white flag.
And Banks got a little bit too aggressive because that's going to cost Erb some momentum. Here comes Justin Hendry on the outside, right behind Lawson Peel. Does anybody have anything for the DBR duo on the white flag? And there's a wreck in the back. It's Brandon Banks.
Brandon Banks, Tony Kivitt, and others are involved near the outside wall. And this is what's left of it. Kip Easley versus Justin Hendry. Lawson Peel is shuffled out of line.
What does that mean now in the battle for the win? Kenneth Lawson Peel's not going to be there to help Kip Easley. He's actually in the middle, 3 wide, trying to hold off. There goes Hendry to the outside of Kip Easley. They're side by side with Timothy Stubblefield now behind the 8. The 20 is going to be here to help. They're going to be side by side coming off of 4.
It's a melting pot of race cars at the exit of turn 4. Justin Hendry and Kip Easley off of the final corner, looking for the start-finish line. They crash. Timothy Stubblefield is the last car there, and Timothy Stubblefield wins the opener from Daytona.
Unreal, Kenneth. What a situation there off of turn 4 with the 8 making the contact with the 85 of Justin Hendry, and that took them both out of the shop for the win. And it's your dual 2 winner who's involved in all sorts of trouble throughout the race that survives and takes away the checkered flag in the first event of the season.
Unbelievable moments in time for Timothy Stubblefield, who was right there at the right moment to capture the victory. And as he saw Kip Easley and Justin Hendry wadded up out of turn 4, he had no one else to pressure him for the victory. Timothy Stubblefield captures the first victory of the inaugural Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season. And for the first time tonight, Timothy Stubblefield will occupy Droppin' the Hammah victory lane. And Stubblefield celebratory after a wild sequence of events in the span of at least 5 seconds. We'll try to take a look at the replay and see what happened with Stubblefield. This is his view out of turn 4 to the white flag. Brandon Banks, Justin Erb there on the inside. And Francisco, what happens here on this final lap?
So you see right there, they lost momentum to Erb and Banks, and there's the move by Henry to the inside. Kip Easley tries to stay with Lawson, but Stubblefield is enough help to the 85 where he has to go down and defend the move, and now Lawson Peel gets broken away from his teammate, and they go 3 wide alongside all 3 of these. So now Kip Easley's on a fight of his own. There goes Justin Hendry to the outside, is able to stay side by side. There's help from both lines, so now it comes down to who gets the side draft, who gets enough help coming to the line. And right here, I bet everybody's wondering, okay, who's going to win this race between Easley and Hendry? And all of a sudden, right about here,
extend this race past the original distance of 312 miles. Let's get a look at the full unofficial results from the World Center of Racing. Timothy Stubblefield gets the first checkered flag in this series for 2025. Lawson Peel ends up right behind. A absolutely strong effort for the Mississippi native to get P2. Justin Erb hangs on for 3rd place. We'll talk to all 3 of them before we end our coverage tonight on the Cable Racing Network. Eric Schaefer lines it up P4. Not the most standout night for the Hampton, Virginia native, but Schaefer nonetheless gets a top 5 out of it, and so does Ross Harlow. Call that resiliency out of Harlow tonight after all that he went through. P5 will definitely be a satisfying result. Jason Hastings from the In-N-Out Chevrolet for Drinkin' Bros Racing is P6. Justin Hendry crashing at the end to the checkered flag. Still gets 7th out of it with Jason Anderson in P8. Brad Fulham in 9th. And Kip Easley, leader at the white flag off turn 4. 10th place at the start-finish line.
11th place is actually going to go to Steven Stempian in the 88, who had a pretty fast car tonight. The 12th place goes to Warren Kyle Keith, who was also pretty quick. Richard Swavely is able to recover nicely for a 13th place finish, with Richard Mudrick, who spent most of the race a lap down, recovers to 14th. Zachary Hall, who was in contention late, finishes in 15th. Tony Kivett in the 16th spot. CJ Munier will finish in the 17th position. Dakota Curtis finishes in 18th. Alex Pasquarello, your Dual 1 winner, will finish in the 19th spot, with Brandon Banks, who was involved in that last lap crash, in the 20th position.
Back in 21st is where you'll find Craig Parks. Parker Bland is 6 laps down in 22nd, with Chris Progar involved in the biggest crash of the night late in the going in 23rd. Casey Knighton in the Casey's machine ends up 24th. 25th will go to a strong James Kunkel, who was good all night long, but could not survive until the end. Daniel Holdcroft, similar situation in 26th. 27th to Chris Cabot. Kevin Roy in the 77 is 28th. Dylan Hervatin suffered a crash earlier on in the going. He's 79 laps down in 29th. And Sean Kalis wraps up the top 30 with Stephen Harlow and Cedric Hunter bringing the end of the 32-car field from the virtual Daytona International Raceway. We'll take a short break, and when we come back on the other side, we will have our interviews with the top 3 drivers and much more coverage after a crazy first race in the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series' inaugural season. We'll be right back on the K Bueno Racing Network. You won't want to miss it.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to the virtual Daytona International Speedway, where we just concluded the first race of the inaugural season in the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, and it came down to a showdown in those final laps with a restart inside 3 laps to go. And the winner of all of that, Timothy Stubblefield, survives the mayhem on the white flag lap in those last 100 or so feet until the start-finish line as Kip Easley and Justin Hendry crash on the outside wall. Timothy Stubblefield takes the victory, and he's in DTH victory lane for the first time this year. Timothy, you were right in the middle of things at the exit of turn 4, but tell us your emotions. What is it like to win a race at Daytona and to kick off the campaign with a victory?
It feels amazing. After being 3 times, being backwards, and I was like, I'm out. But each time I got in a wreck, I think I had about a minute and a half of damage, so I got back up there. But I'm glad I finally got this is, I think, my first time ever winning a league race. The whole time I've been on iRacing, so it feels good. I hate that at the end coming out of 4, I was pushing 8, and I think they kind of got a little loose, and I think he came up on 85 or 82 at the end. And they went sideways, and I hate that it happened, but, I mean, I ain't letting up either.
And in that moment, I mean, you just barely get away for the victory with the cars crashing right in front of you, but in the story of the entire race and the context of it, you went through a lot. Tons of track position changes. I mean, you were involved in 2 crashes earlier on, but you somehow managed to survive and keep this race car as pristine as ever with the damage repair on pit road. What was it like midway through the race, and what were those emotions like compared to, let's say, that final lap where you realize you have a shot at the victory there?
I mean, each time as soon as I got spun out, I was like, it's over with. I see the wall, I'm going to it. But each time, back to the back. I mean, front to the back, and I was like, I get back up here, get back, and at the end, like 3 to go, I'm up in top 5. I was like, oh, I might have a win, I might have a shot, and we came through this time.
Well, Timothy, as the only Ford in the field, we were talking about it many times throughout the race, how everyone had mostly gone Chevrolets, lots of them Toyotas, but the only Ford was you in this entire field. So you become the solo horse prancing to the front. What does it mean now that you have a win in the back pocket and you get to experience the rest of this inaugural season, knowing you've got this win, and for right now, you've got a spot in the playoffs?
It feels good. Just need to keep it up this season. Get a couple more wins on my belt will be awesome, but I'm excited.
Well, I'd say, Timothy, this is a real good start, all things considered. The winner from Daytona. Timothy, before we let you go, anybody in particular you want to give a shout out to or thank for tonight?
I'll definitely shout out to my wife. She supported me big time on this, and family fans that watch it, get on here and comment, and the guys that put on this league, and y'all put on the podcast, and everybody comes out every Sunday night and race.
Well, she was the big supporter throughout tonight's race. We saw her a ton supporting you in the YouTube chat. I'm sure that's going to be an awesome moment. Timothy, on behalf of all of us at the K1 Racing Network, congratulations on the win from Daytona, and we're looking forward to see you try to go back-to-back next week at Las Vegas. Enjoy the win.
Thank you very much. I'll see y'all next week.
Timothy Stubblefield, the only Ford Mustang in the field, evades all odds to become the winner tonight from the World Center of Racing. And we talked to Lawson Peel right before that late green flag restart. Francisco Bacalhau, he finishes second tonight.
Well, Austin, very oftentimes I find myself talking to you at the end of these races. Just one spot short there. It looked like you guys got split up on the white flag lap between yourself and Kip Easley. What else did you have to do differently to come away, either as yourself as the winner or Kip?
Yeah, we got just split there, and I didn't have any help to keep me close to him, and then they kind of got all side by side in front of me, and I tried to push Stubblefield, who was in line with him, just hoping that would transfer to him and help his chances, and it did. And I feel so bad for him. He drove such a great race and just had it up until the very end there, and just looked like he got a little bit of a bad bump and sent him right rear hooked into the wall. So just hated that, but such a fun race, man. The racing was great and just had a blast, and just up there fighting and dueling it out, and great way to start the series off, and great first race of the season.
Well, we started the race here at Daytona, Lawson, a great effort from you. And the next couple of races, we go to Las Vegas next week. So we saw you have good success at Las Vegas in 4-wide not too long ago. So what can you carry over from that race that you could apply to Las Vegas next week?
Yeah, I think I still remember what I need to do pretty well. So depending on what time of day the race is, I think the track kind of drives a little different versus if it's day versus night. So, but just love the track and always enjoy racing there, and it always puts on really great racing. So, it always has. And the Sunoco predecessor series to this series, we had great races there as well. So just looking forward to it. It'll be a lot of fun.
Work, Lawson. A lot of people helped make this happen for yourself and your whole entire team. So I'll give you the stage to get a shout out to everybody that helped us make this happen.
Yeah, thanks to you guys up at the broadcast booth for broadcasting us. Can't wait to go back and watch as always, and all my Drinking Bros teammates. Thanks to all the new admins that put this together, to ProGuard and Stimpian and Kunkel and everybody that's helping them out, and looking forward to the rest of the season and having fun with everybody here in the league. So appreciate everybody. Thanks to Paul's Setup Shop and everybody that watched tonight.
Appreciate the time, Lawson, you take with us. And once again, congratulations on your strong running here all night long. It was a fantastic P2 effort. We hope to see you out there at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway next week, and we also hope to see you at on the show on Wednesday night, possibly.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and that'll be a lot of fun. So, yeah, I'll be talking to you guys soon, and appreciate it as always.
That's Lawson Peel's second place, and in fact, Francisco is right. You may hear his voice on Wednesday night for the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series All-Star Race and the All-Star Open. We're going to have a drivers-only broadcast, so that'll be a ton of fun. And there is more content to be seen on the Cable One Racing Network. Let's turn to third-place finisher Justin Erb representing TOW Racing. Justin, a strong night given everything that happened specifically on that final lap. Absolute chaos and pandemonium, but you found yourself at the right end of things, barely evading the crash at the checkered flag. What was this race like for you specifically?
I'd probably have to chalk it down to just the ebbs and flows of, super speedway racing. I've never been particularly good at these kinds of races, but with everybody in the DTH camp and the TOW camp always looking to help each other out. I mean, I was always comfy running around all of them, and definitely got me comfy in the pack, and everything kind of just worked out after I got separated from them because of all the wrecks. So just happy to finish up second here. Or third, sorry.
And with everything that went down, I mean, anyone could basically boil it down to a wild race to describe it simply. But for you, spending a good amount of this race, especially at the tail end, at the front of the field, what was it like to put your name out there in that portion of the race, work with some of your TOW Racing teammates, and get a feel for what was the field up front and be able to stick with everybody?
It is nice to mix it up with a lot of people. Definitely with the new addition of, I believe his name is, it's Jason Anderson. He's the new guy on the team, and he's a great fit. He's great. I can see good things coming from him on this team moving forward. Working with the teammates is always a pleasure. We always helping each other out no matter what happens. So it's always fun to do that. And when we can work together to push through the field, it's even better.
Well, Justin, you survive at the end of this long 125 lapper. You get third place out of it. Pretty good points entering Las Vegas Motor Speedway. What are your thoughts about the mile and a half we'll see next Sunday?
It's more or less kind of just a toss-up. It's either I do really well at those intermediates or I get wrecked early. So I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed that I can keep her clean.
Well, Justin, we really appreciate the time. Before we let you bounce here from Daytona, anybody in particular you want to thank for the run?
Oh, definitely. First off, I want to thank the admins, Stempy, Progar, Kunkel, Alex. I got to give them major props. Got to thank Alex again for signing me back on TOW. That's always a good run. I do have to give a shout out to Ross because he was just, that car was destroyed at the end, and how he managed to get fifth. That was insane. So I got to give a shout out to him. But most importantly, I have to give the biggest shout out to my dad. He's always been on my side and always urging me to go forward, and I feel like I'm kind of following him in virtual shoes, if you may. So big shout out to you, Dad. Love you.
Definitely awesome. Justin, we appreciate the time. Congratulations on the podium finish here from the World Center of Racing, and excited to see you and the field take on Sin City in Las Vegas next Sunday. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Justin Erb for TOW Racing locks up the top three from Daytona International Speedway. And then we continue. We got Daytona done and dusted tonight, but we continue the season next Sunday. We're just getting started with season 1 of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series. We'll be live from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway next time around. So join us then. That coverage begins at around 8:10 p.m. Eastern. You won't want to miss it here on the K1 Racing Network. It'll be absolute chaos, just like tonight was, maybe a little less dialed in than we had here at the Super Speedway, but nonetheless, it will be great. It will be a start of a 3-race West Coast swing that takes us through Phoenix and then Auto Club before we return to the Midwest at Chicagoland Speedway in early March. Francisco, just what are your thoughts on this race? I mean, Timothy Stubblefield, the exemplary driver of resiliency apart from Ross Harlow, sustaining 3 crashes in this race, multiple times on end, being able to bounce back and being right there when it mattered most for the win.
I think it goes to show that it's not over until it's over, and that no matter what happens in a super speedway race, as long as you're on the lead lap, you have a chance to win. And I think all 3 of those things really worked in his favor. He was able to stay on the lead lap. It was there consistently, just waiting for his opportunity, and was at the right place at the right time for when that contact happened with Kip Beasley and Justin Henry. And it was basically right on his lap. He didn't have to do much at that point on to be able to secure the victory, and now he can go about the rest of the regular season without having to worry about the playoffs so long as he makes the minimum start requirement he has to make. So it's a huge burden off his back, but now it means he can try to run a different race at all these other racetracks when we go there strategy-wise in hopes of just gambling, trying to get more wins.
Such a big advantage when you win the first race of the season and you've got the entire campaign ahead of you. So Timothy Stubblefield will be learning lots of lessons, but like he told us in Victory Lane, he wants to grab some more wins. So it's definitely not journey over for Stubblefield as he captures the first win of the 2025 Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season. Well, that would do it for our coverage of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series from the virtual Daytona International Speedway. For everyone that makes DTH Cup Series what it is on this inaugural race, Chris Progar, Steven Stempian, and the entire admin team, a big thank you for keeping this series and this idea of racing on Sundays with a great group of friends afloat. And to all of us at the K-Bueno Racing Network, for Charlie Beyer, Keelan Belsha, Eli Comerford, and for our crew on the broadcast tonight, for my colleague Francisco Bacalao, I'm Kenneth Bueno saying so long from Daytona. Congratulations to Timothy Stubblefield on the win. We'll see you next Sunday at Las Vegas.